Hello, and welcome to this module on mobile hacking. Let's see what we'll be covering in this theoretical video. We'll kick off with what mobile platforms are out there. Then we'll move on to mobile vulnerabilities. Then look at the different kinds of mobile attacks. And then finally, as usual, we will end off with the countermeasures. Let's get started. So let's look at the different mobile platforms. The biggest and by far the most popular is Google's Android platform, which owns the biggest market share by far, and as a result is also the biggest target. At last count, I think it was 70 or 80% of the market currently runs Android. The next biggest platform is Apple's iOS, and that's probably around between 10 and 15% of the market. Although it seems to be more secure than Android, it's only because there are less Apple phones out there, and as a result less malware, so it becomes less of a target. It's pretty much like Windows in the mobile or desktop world, where Windows is by far the biggest target because it has the biggest market share. Same with Android in this case, and iOS is the same as Mac. It has a much smaller market share and less malware, but don't be fooled. There is malware for Mac and there is malware for iOS. The next platform is Windows Mobile, which is now Windows 10, and that market share has shrunk. At one point, Windows had about 2.5% of the market, but at last count, it's gone down to 1.5% of the market. So the future of the Windows Mobile platform is up in the air, but who knows what will happen. And then finally, there's still some BlackBerry floating around, but if you follow the industry journals, you'll note that BlackBerry's latest model now runs Android. So BlackBerry as an operating system is on its way out. Eventually, I think the only two that will remain are Android and iOS, and perhaps a new player will come into the market at some point. But these are the mobile platforms that are out there, and generally we look at Android as the most vulnerable. Let's look at the different mobile vulnerabilities. So the first vulnerability is actually found in the actual operating systems, and here we look at Android, iOS, Windows Mobile, and there are specific vulnerabilities in these operating systems that bad actors exploit to gain vulnerabilities or to plant malware or to steal data, etc. The next form of vulnerability that is specific to the mobile world are the apps and the app stores. Now, generally, the app stores are quite secure, and if you download an app from the app store, you're quite safe. But there are a few rogue app stores out there that hackers have put out onto the market where people download malicious apps that then go ahead and compromise the device and their data. That being said, there have been cases where there have been malware in apps that are on the official app stores, but these have been taken down quite quickly. But the basic moral of the story here is that you need to be sure that the apps you download are secure, because that just because they're in the app store doesn't necessarily mean they are secure. And there is malware floating out there, and hackers are using this as a hunting ground because it is so large. The mobile world is massive, and there is so many mobile devices out there, so it makes sense that they'd want their malware to be deployed across the mobile world because of the huge market and the huge attack vector that exists. Then we look at malware, which you've discussed. So you get malware that is very specifically written for mobile platforms, and it does things like lock your device, steal your data, send SMSs or spoof email on your behalf, and compromise your device and use it in a botnet, for example, in a spam attack. Jailbreaking, this is a term that you'll hear in the mobile world. It's also known as rooting, and that's pretty much where you as the user decide that you do not like the lockdown features of your phone and then jailbreak it. In other words, try and get access to the actual operating system so you can make changes to the operating system. Now, as soon as you do this, your warranty is void, and pretty much you're on your own. So it is seen as a mobile vulnerability, even though it is seen as freeing the device from the clutches of the operating system. Then we look at privacy and privacy, depending on where you are in the world. And there, pretty much one of the biggest issues that users have of mobile devices is the fact that governments or hackers or whoever has access to the device or the device's data can actually track them in real time to where they are on the planet, thanks to the GPS and the geolocation services on those devices. And this is seen as a mobile vulnerability because people generally value their privacy. So it is a mobile vulnerability, and if your mobile device gets compromised, people feel threatened because the mobile device is so personal to them that their privacy is also very important to them, and the two go hand in hand. So as a result, privacy is definitely seen as a mobile vulnerability. And then finally, there's physical theft. Because of the nature of mobile devices, they're small, they're portable, and they're generally left around. It's very easy to have a mobile device stolen, which in itself compromises the device and all the applications on the device, which is why it's always so important to set some form of security or lock code on your device, because you never know when it might be taken, and then people will have access to pretty much everything in your life. Let's move on now and take a look at the different mobile attacks. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of mobile attacks, I'd just like to make the statement that, well, mobile is a massive, huge part of penetration testing. It's a field of study on its own. Think of it in scale as compared to web applications and wireless. It is massive. And mobile is also pretty new. I mean, the mobile penetration testing and mobile security has only been around for a few years, not even 10 years actually. And as a result, it's still in its infancy. But it has introduced a whole issue of security in enterprise organizations, because in the past people did a fair amount of work in securing the perimeter, making sure that the firewalls were up, making sure that the applications on the inside of the firewall were secure, running antivirus, etc., etc. But since mobile arrived, pretty much the perimeter has disappeared in organizations. The perimeter now is every single mobile device that is out there in the hands of the employees. And as a result, it has totally turned the concept of security on its head, in that identity now. Identity of, and making sure that the identity of everybody who's using mobile devices is now the perimeter. So the perimeter is porous, and as a result, mobile is a very fast growing part of penetration testing, but more so has changed the paradigm of security in enterprises. Let's move on now and look at the different forms of mobile attacks. The first one, and probably the most common, is malware. And under malware we have specific viruses, worms and trojans that are written for mobile platforms. You also have Trojan apps that are games. They look like games, but they're actually stealing data in the background or doing some other malicious activity. And of course, there's OS modification. So if you have rooted your device, or if you download a virus that is capable of rooting your device, it can make changes to the operating system, which leaves your device and data compromised. The next form of category of mobile attack is data loss. And there we look at the vulnerabilities in apps that can leak data, leak privacy, and all that sort of stuff. So when you install an app, make sure you read the fine print that says we're going to have access to your contacts, we're going to have access to your email, we're going to have access to your location. All of those things are vulnerabilities in the real world of security. And the problem is users often don't understand or don't really care about the consequences of enabling those app vulnerabilities. Apps and mobile devices are actually just presentation layer of the OSI model. So in the demo that I'll do a little bit later, you'll see that every single mobile device is actually just a PC. It's just a different form factor. And all those apps actually talk to back-end services on the internet. So man-in-the-middle attack is a very real threat. You can sniff passwords, you can sniff credentials, you can steal cookies. All the stuff you can do with a web application, you can pretty much do with any mobile app that pretty much connects to a back-end web service. And then finally, there's theft. If somebody takes your mobile device and you haven't backed up your contacts or whatever the case may be, they will have access to your data. The next category is privacy. And privacy is a very important part of the mobile world. People value their privacy or privacy, depending on where you are in the world. And as a result, we need to look at privacy very, very carefully. So the first thing is app modification, which pretty much talks to the app vulnerability under data loss. But app modification, like I said before, if you enable location services, pretty much the writers or the backend services of the apps that you've allowed access to your location will know where you are in real time. Geolocation is pretty much part of that. So as a result, if you have not set your location services to private or disabled them, at any point in time, your device will pretty much let people know, your ISP, your mobile carrier provider, the app that you're using, all those different individuals and organizations will have a full track record of where you are and where you have been since you switched that device or app on. And as usual, this is also prone to man-in-the-middle attacks. So just because you trust the app provider doesn't mean that somebody can't put themselves in between your traffic and actually gain access to where you are in the real world. Let's move on now and look at the countermeasures. In an enterprise environment, the biggest countermeasure currently is mobile device management, which is pretty much enterprise-grade software, services, and hardware that control mobile device access to the organization's data and services. And pretty much if you look at specific product types, there's Microsoft's Intune or Microsoft's Enterprise Mobility Suite, which has Intune and a whole bunch of other products bundled together to provide mobile device management, which gives you things like being able to lock down devices, remote wipe the devices, making sure that users put lock screens if they join their devices to the corporate email service, etc., etc. So the other big one is VMware's AirWatch. Locking devices is very important. So when you get your mobile device, you always encourage users to set a lock PIN code or a specific lock, whatever the device has. Having some locking mechanism to prove authentication is better than having a totally open device in the case of theft or in the case of people just picking up the device and browsing data and secure information. Physical security. So your device pretty much is your life moving forward, has been for some time. People spend more time with their devices than with their friends, and as a result, you need to physically secure that device because it has your whole life on it. It has where you've been, it has the photos you've taken, it's got the apps you've accessed, it's got your browsing history, it's got your entire personal digital identity on that device. Physical security is very important, and having user awareness of how to secure the devices, don't leave it lying around, always keep it within your reach, etc., is important from a physical security and securing the mobile device point of view. IMEI blocking, well, that's pretty much if the device gets stolen, you can actually block the device if you have the IMEI number. And this is something that your ISP should do, or your mobile carrier should do rather, as soon as your device is lost or stolen. And then, of course, there is the Find My Phone apps, which is pretty much common across the Android, Apple, and Microsoft ecosystems, where you can pretty much register your device on a mobile app, which then talks to a backend service and gives real-time information to within a few meters of where your actual device is. So this helps if your phone gets stolen or if you've lost it. However, as with there's always a trade-off. As soon as you enable that service, the mobile carrier as well as the backend service will know where you are, or rather where your phone is, at every point in time. And that pretty much ends this theoretical video on mobile penetration testing, mobile vulnerabilities, and mobile security. And I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Thank you.